Another aspect of our ranch management and our production is a marketing plan. And so we want to think about that. So it's a whole lot more than just taking a calf and loading it up and taking it to the sale. And so part of that marketing plan includes weaning calves. And weaning can increase the value of those calves. So weaning is the right thing to do, and it's important from a welfare standpoint because it's much easier on those calves if we'll wean them on the ranch of origin rather than them getting weaned on the trailer ride to the auction market or to the feedlot or to a stocker operator. And so when we think about weaning calves, there's several different methods we can do. The one I'm going to talk about is what we call fence line weaning. And so with fence line weaning, what we're going to have is the cows on one side of the fence and then the calves right across on the other side of the fence. And by doing this, it reduces the stress on both groups because they can see, hear, and smell each other. What a lot of people are tempted to do is put the cows in one pasture, skip 2 or 3 pastures, and then put the calves. And while that sounds really good, if you've ever tried that before, what you know is going to happen is you get the rebuild fence because those cows are going to find a way back to the calves. And so that's where the fence line weaning comes in handy. It's a very easy process. You can do it with a lot of types of fence. So if you have a pipe fence, that works great, a net wire fence, a barbed wire fence. If you have the right kind of cattle, you could actually do it with the multi-strand electric fence. The biggest thing here is a lot of people think, I don't have a fence that's good enough to wean calves. I'll tell you, when I was in grad school, we actually weaned calves on a fence that was so bad it was barbed wire and cedar posts that you couldn't drive a staple into those cedar posts anymore. We had to take wire and wire any loose spots back up every year. And we would wean 100, 150 calves at a time. And yeah, we may have a couple calves crawl through the fence. Don't worry about that. That just means that calf got the nurse 1 or 2 more times. You can sort that calf back out and put it back with the calves. If it crawls through again, then you can take and move it to a set of pens if you need to. But if you've never tried it, I would strongly encourage you to try fence line weaning. It's really easy. It will increase the value of those calves. The other thing it will do is calves shrink when we haul them to market. And what I mean by shrink is they lose water weight, they lose gut feel, they urinate, they defecate. And so if we were to weigh a calf out in the pasture, and let's say he weighs 500 pounds, if we don't wean that calf and just put him on a trailer and take him to the auction market, he could lose 10 to 12 to 15% of his body weight. And so instead of selling 500 pounds, now we're selling 450 pounds. Well, that 50 pounds is worth a lot of money, and so it's definitely worth the effort to go ahead and wean those calves. We'll talk about preconditioning programs here in a minute. That's going to be a requirement of those preconditioning programs. With that fence line weaning, what you'll typically see is within a couple of days, the calves will be out grazing in the pasture. The cows will come back and forth, but after 4 or 5 days, you can go ahead and move those cows on off to another pasture if you want. The key with any weaning method, but especially fence line weaning, is on weaning day, don't do anything other than separating the cows from the calves. So we don't want them run them through the chute. If we can help it, we don't want to vaccinate that day. We just want to calmly and quietly sort the cows and put them in their pasture, sort the calves and put them in their pasture. So where do we go about selling the calves? There's a lot of options out there. So we could use our local livestock auction market. So here in the Brazos Valley, Navasota Livestock Auction would be close for our example ranch. So we could take those calves and sell them there. You could take them to one that's close to your location. Another thing we may want to look at is a preconditioned calf sale. And what I mean by a preconditioned calf sale is that's a set of calves that producers bring together that have been weaned, that have been castrated, that have received 2 rounds of vaccines. An example of one of those is the Net Bio sale in Sulphur Springs. They actually have a sale every other month. Other examples would be Buffalo Livestock Auction, Jordan Cattle Company out at San Saba, Decatur up in the north central Texas area. But the value of those preconditioned calf sales is, one, those buyers are buying a calf that's been weaned and backgrounded, so it has less risk to them, so they're willing to pay a premium for that. The other advantage is you get a lot of calves of the same type and kind together. So rather than an order buyer sitting at a local livestock auction buying one at a time, they can buy truckload lots, which will increase the value of those calves. Depending on what preconditioned sale you're going to and what weight of calves you're selling, premiums will vary, but a lot of times we're routinely looking at an extra $80 to $100 a head for selling those calves through a preconditioned sale. So I'd encourage you to visit with some of those markets out there that have those sales, see what the requirements are, and see if you can participate in those sales. If you're dealing with larger number of calves and you could sell in groups of 45 to 50,000 pounds, which is what we would call a truckload lot, then we could look at selling on a video auction like Superior. Now realize we need to have those calves of similar age and similar weight to do that. And so typically, if we were selling 500-pound steers, to get a 50,000 pound load, we're looking at 100 head or 90 head to get that 45,000 pound load. So we do have more calves, or we would need more calves to fill out an order to do that. One nice thing of selling on a video auction like Superior is they come out, they video those cattle, they auction them off. If you don't like the price, you can PO those calves and the cattle never leave your operation. Another option would be having an order buyer come out and buy those calves directly out of the pasture. The important thing to realize in that situation is make sure you know and understand the market value of those calves so you get what they're worth. That's a benefit of an auction market, is they're being purchased under competitive bids in that situation.